Welcome to Going in Blind. I'm your host, Zach Tidwell, and my guest this week has done a whole slew of things from bodybuilding as a competitor for more than 10 years. She's also worked as a strength and conditioning coach at all levels, all the way up to working with special forces members and Olympic athletes, which I'm sure we will probably get into some today as well. But also now she's doing her own or playing her own role in combating the suicide epidemic here in Colorado, which for those of you who are familiar with my story know that's very near and dear to my heart. I think we have the fifth, I think, highest suicide rate or seventh highest suicide rate in the country. It's yeah, pretty wild. And it really caught me off guard learning about all of that. So she is the founder of the Colorado Springs Health and Fitness Expo, where hopefully we will finally cross paths in person this summer. But wanted to have her in here. But before we get into all of her awesome story, just a couple quick announcements as usual. I already hinted at it in the intro if you're new to the show, but there's a very powerful story behind this podcast and sharing other people's stories and work. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about that, you can head over to zachtidwell.com and read about it there. Then you can join my mailing list and reach out to me for speaking engagements and things like that, if any of that piques your interest. If you've been listening or watching for a while, please support the show with a rating and review or just by sharing it around. That's how I keep attracting these incredible guests. And I think that's all I have for you guys. So, Miss Sandi Griffin, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I gave you a heads up before we got started that I I'd been reading about how you got into bodybuilding in the first place and just in preparing to speak with you and was kind of blown away by that. It was so far away from what I would have expected from someone who got so heavily into that field. So I'd like to start there. If you can maybe walk us through how you got into all that, because I think it's kind of crazy.
Well, I tell my husband he created the monster. So it actually started because I let my health deteriorate to the point that I thought I was going to die of a heart attack or stroke and leave my children without a mom. At the age of 33, I was pre-diabetic. I had high blood pressure that was not being treated, and I was completely sedentary and lost. In fact, I was of the mindset that maybe I'll just gain 50 more pounds and then I'll be able to get gastric bypass surgery and the doctors can fix me. That's how I thought I was too far gone. I thought I was hopeless. I thought I'd let myself go to the point that there was no hope for me. And my rock bottom was actually a friend of mine, similar situation, a little bit older than I was, nearly died of an aneurysm. And she was 50 pounds overweight, sedentary, high blood pressure that wasn't being treated, pre-diabetic, basically me 7 years in the future. And that really scared me. So I just started making small little changes. I thought I've got to do something. My kids, I want to be a mom to my kids. I don't want them to ever be without me. I couldn't imagine that. And my husband deserved a healthy wife. He didn't marry me like that. And I deserved better. I deserved to treat my body better. So I started making really small changes, and it took one person saying, "Oh my gosh, how much weight have you lost?" That just kept me going. Because 20 pounds feels good. And I think my husband knew, like, well, she might get comfortable with just a little bit, I know she can do this. So he talked me into doing this bodybuilding show on the military base that we were at in Germany. And I was actually at a different base in England. But and I kept telling him, no, no, I'm not going to do that. I had never been in a bathing suit, a two-piece bathing suit in my life. And I was not going to do that for the first time on the stage. And he kept bugging me about it. And so finally, you just get worn down. And I'm like, fine, whatever, but it wasn't a yes. It was just like, just shut up and leave me alone type of response. Um, and this is how I discovered accountability. He started telling all my friends that I had said yes. And so one day, one of my friends comes up and says, "Hey, I heard you're doing that bodybuilding show next month. I'd love to come watch." And I was too prideful to be scared and say that I wasn't going to do it. And so I said, okay. And it was actually because of that that I followed through with it and entered this bodybuilding show. Had no idea what I was doing, had lost some weight, but really didn't have a lot of muscle yet. But by a fluke, I won that show and was invited to another one in Scotland. Um, and it was a pro qualifier. I had no business being on that stage. Like I had a panic attack at that next show, which was just a few months later. But the woman that was a Natural Bodybuilding Federation just had words that resonated with me. She goes, "You've worked hard and you belong on this stage." And I just took that and ran with it. And a few years later, I was competing at shows that I had only dreamed about.
I guess so. Even at the entry level when you were getting into it, is it the caricature that you picture where you've like made yourself almost like chocolatey colored to make yourself as like get as much definition showing as possible? Like when you see the like Mr. Olympia guys in the pictures, like was it 0 to 100 out of the gate like that?
Oh no.
Okay.
It was quite the opposite. I got a late start, so I didn't compete till I was 34. And as a female and as a natural athlete, we just don't put on the muscle mass quite as fast as we'd like. So it was a very long process, but I learned so much through that process. That was probably one of the best things I could have ever done for myself and one of the most memorable points of my life so far. Other than being a mother and a wife and everything. Um, the or, had the importance of setting goals. I discovered the importance of facing your fears and getting over obstacles and learning to be I could look at myself when I lost a competition and go, that's what I need to work on. Instead of beating myself up, instead of letting those voices get inside my head like you're not good enough. So I learned a lot about how to love my body where it was at and love my body for what it could do and love my body for what it could accomplish. And that started radiating in other parts of my life, in relationships, the way I treated other people, the way I constructed criticism as an entrepreneur. So it really taught me a lot.
Yeah, and you mentioned accountability. I think that external accountability is huge in life in general, and it can be in a small way. Like but I think announcing that you're going to do something, and I know obviously your husband was announcing it on your behalf, but that is a real thing. Even if you say like, "Hey, okay, I'm writing a book." Like to me, if I say that, that means there will be a book that is completed. Okay, that was about the biggest possible hiccup that I think I've had on here and been able to recover from. So, the for people listening, hopefully you won't hear that. People watching, unfortunately, sorry, we were trying to get through that, but I can't edit video, so that should still be in there. But um, we were talking about accountability there, and downstream of that, I think is. I guess I'm curious to know is how do you go from that? I mean, these two big experiences, especially being at the pro qualifier, and then how many years down the road are you leading these programs for special forces operators? And was your husband in the special forces community?
He was not. So
Okay.
my husband was actually active duty Air Force and in medic at Longshore Regional Medical Center. That's where all of the wounded, or all of our wounded warrior special forces, if they were downrange and got injured on their deployment, would come to Longshore first, the level 2 trauma center. They would get kind of patched up and at least stable. And if they were severe cases, they would go to Walter Reed, and many of them stayed and recovered in Germany. So that was where the opportunity came from. As I got into bodybuilding, I wanted to make sure that I was keeping myself safe and that I was doing good things for myself. So, there's a lot of things that can go on in the gym that aren't exactly safe. And there's the bra science, that comes along with it. So I think it was maybe, I don't know, a few months after my first couple competitions, I thought, I'm going to take a personal training course just to learn fundamental movements, make sure I'm doing them safely, make sure I know what I'm doing. And of course, through my transition and now people seeing me in the gym, I started getting so many questions. Can you help me? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I'm like, I really know what I'm doing myself. I don't know that you want my help yet. But after I got the certification, I never intended to be a personal trainer. So I fell into that by accident too. And that goes back to my statement before. My husband created this monster. It's all his fault. I blame him for everything. And thank him for everything. But um, I started getting so many people wanting to make their own transformations that I decided to go ahead and give this personal training thing a shot. And I began at the Launchstool gym, right, that was connected to the hospital. And in doing that, several of my first clients were providers. They were doctors, surgeons,
Mm.
techs, active duty, personnelists, not necessarily in the medical, weren't all doctors and everything, but worked with a lot of military members, and families. But as time went on, I established a really great reputation with the physicians that I was working with, my knowledge and my, um, ability to help people through pain, help people gain muscle, lose weight, all the things. And eventually the team at Launchel had put together a whole person health program, because I think it started mostly because the special forces guys, they're a fun group. But as soon as they wake up from anesthesia, they're like, I've got to get back to my team. And we're like,
Bunch of psychos. Yeah.
wait. You need to like get the stitches out first at least or something. So they put together this really great program that focused not just on their physical being, because those guys have a pain tolerance that's like no other, but it also worked with nutrition, hydration, mobility, sleep, mental health, TBI clinic. And then I was kind of the second half of the program that went from ortho, PT, chronic pain management. And then I was invited to be the strength and conditioning coach. And I worked alongside some amazing physicians and physical therapists and amazing service members. I mean, and eventually this program opened up to everyone. So it wasn't just active duty, but it was DoD civilians and family members.
Mm.
And I just loved that, when you come out of an injury or a trauma like that, there's a lot of things you can't do anymore. You're a different person. TBI just can wreck you. Having your spine with rods and pins and cages, you may not have the movement. You may have to medically retire. You may not be able to do your job anymore. But with that, there's so many things you can do. And I loved watching people go from that, just utter desperation and just utter depression, like they've lost everything. It feels like they've lost everything. And to show them that you can still lift, you can still move, you can still do this, you can still do this. It's going to take time and it takes a little creativity, but you can get past those hurdles,
Yeah.
or you can at least move forward from where you're at right now. And that was like so rewarding. That was such a rewarding piece of my job. And I'm so grateful that they trusted me with that part of the program, because it propelled me into many other things later.
Well, especially for those guys, like it's so capable, the special forces guys, right? I mean, that's a different tier of human being. And then to have lost stuff like that. And not only have they lost something like that, I mean, I don't know if there's a more traumatic way to lose something than in war, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot going on there, but that sounded so like the program was so comprehensive. When was this? Like, was this relatively early in the war that you guys had spun this thing up?
This was because my memory is terrible. Things blend together, but I believe it was somewhere between 2013 and 2016.
Okay, so it had been rolling for a while by that
Hmm.
point, but still, I mean, what a uh like potentially very leveraged time to come into someone's life again and show them that it's focusing on the things that you can still do, not the things that you can't. And a lot of times finding a way to do things that other people are telling you that you can't do that are still possible. They just haven't seen someone do it.
Yeah.
That's freaking empowering for
Oh my,
somebody.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. And one of the guys that I met when I was there became one of my best training partners ever. And we're still best friends. He's like my big brother. He was just here a few weeks ago visiting. He's my big brother. I love him to death. I'd do anything for him, and he would do anything for our family too. He's just an amazing man. Been through so much, and it's just loving and living life. He
Well,
still
yeah.
deals with that, that's always going to be a part of you. But he has found just joy in life now, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and well, and I think that's important for people to hear too, it's not like that stuff doesn't just go away. He's just learned nothing that anyone ever goes through has gone away. You've learned how to navigate. You've come to terms with it to the extent that you can, and then there's that choice of if you're going to move on past it or not. And obviously, it sounds like he has, which is it's beautiful. So
Yeah.
that was that how you got your foot in the door? I mean, from there, eventually you guys, because I mean, you're in Colorado now. You guys returned here at some point and then ended up working with Olympians or what?
So when I met my training partner, it was a result of a WCAP athlete transporting him to launch stool. So he had been blown up and was there with significant head trauma and other injuries. And the active duty person that transported him was a WCAP athlete and also
And what
part
is
of the
that?
women's. WCAP is World Class Athlete Program. It's an Army program that basically you're an active duty Army soldier, but you are
Uh-huh.
also training for the Olympics.
Oh,
And your training for the Olympics becomes your full-time job.
wow. Okay.
And this athlete um, was at the gym the same time I was, and also one of my best friends to this day. Uh, and she asked me, how many hours do you exercise in the sauna? And I went, wait, what? I don't exercise in the sauna. I exercise out here, but I'll warm up for 10, 15 minutes, especially if it's cold outside. We're in Germany. And I was just a few months out from competing in my first Arnold Classic. And so I was pretty lean, I was pretty strong. I trained heavy, and I was super, super strong for a female. I discovered that pretty early on in my training, and especially an older female. And she was just befuddled that I was that strong, I was that shredded, and that I didn't sit in the sauna and sweat for hours in a plastic suit. And so she's like, "Could I fly you out to help me?" And I'm like, "Sure, I would love that." So I think I met her in, I want to say it was fall time frame, maybe September, October, November. Um, and then I competed that following March. And the Arnold Classic, or that had been my second. And since I was already in the United States competing at the Arnold in Ohio, she just flew me from Ohio to Colorado. And I met several other athletes. I met a boxer and a couple wrestlers. Um, and they really wanted help with their nutrition and, just lifting safely and all that kind of stuff. So that was my first introduction to Colorado. And it was March and it was sunny and there was a little bit of
Uh,
snow on the ground, but it was warm. And I was like, what the heck? Because Germany is very cold,
opposite.
gray. It's like Washington weather, in the
Yeah.
spring. So I was like, this place is so cool. And I couldn't do the incline because it was shut down because they were working on it or something, or there was too much snow. But that was my first introduction to Colorado and working with Olympic athletes. And I came out another time to work with a couple more. And when we moved here, got to do some really great things with the national team.
Yeah, and I mean, that's prime Colorado experience. And I try and explain that to people of like that is what you don't understand is we get winters out here, but it's not a Midwest winter where it's gray for 9 months out of the year and you're freezing
Yeah.
your butt off the whole time. Like you get these glorious sunny days 2 days after a snowstorm and all the snow's gone again, and it's like it's
Yeah.
back to spring. But with with the training. Two big questions. I've always heard one with for bodybuilders, it's like a very obviously you're dialed in on absolutely everything to be doing that and being to be successful in that. But in terms of actual lifting, is it I mean, is it cartoonishly high reps? I've always heard it's like volume, volume, volume with all of that.
That it's like anything else in life. There is never a one size fits all.
Hmm.
Um, there is that sweet spot. You know, if you're not doing enough reps, you're getting more into power and strength, and not necessarily into the hypertrophy. But um, there's a sweet spot, and everybody's body is slightly different. So with my upper body, I and my first coach was amazing as far as the physiology or the kinesiology was concerned, and really taught me about movement, how to feel it, and how to isolate things, and how to, get really particular with the way that I lifted to get every single fiber involved. Um, but I did a little combination of everything. So my chest day, I went from a 135 one rep max at about 135 pounds in 4 months. And he had me do a 20 rep set with 135. I had to build up to that. It took me a little while to build up to doing 20 reps. And then I would do 10 reps, 8 reps, 6 reps, 4 reps, 2 reps, progressively going up basically to a 1 rep max. And then I had to go back down and do another 20 rep set of 135.
Okay.
So it was, I never threw up. I never threw up, but it was just that volume plus the strength training plus volume and legs. My legs responded really well to like 20 rep sets and 20 rep supersets of 3 exercises in a row, and 20 rep squat followed by 20 rep hack squat followed by walking lunges up and down the gym.
Wow.
I mean, it was just, yeah, it was miserable, but I loved it. So
How
like, I don't know that I can do this and whatever. I never would have tried that on my own, but because somebody else believed in me and knew that I could, I did. And then once I knew that I
yeah.
could, I wouldn't go back. I would not go back.
How do you, because you said everyone's range is different, is that just trial and error where, okay, for 3 months, we're trying this rep range. For 3 months, we'll try and bump it to the 20s. And then you just notice that you grew more in that time or what?
Yeah, and you're not really going to grow without increasing your strength. You can't stay at the same weight and grow. You can, I mean, yes and no. But because my strength was going up and then I harnessed that strength and used it more with what I was doing, that's how I discovered what worked really well for me. But there's so many, it's not an easy answer because nutrition also plays a big part of that. And that's one of the dark sides of bodybuilding is there's a lot of disordered eating. There's a lot of where it's not quite eating disorder, but it's not good eating habits either. And people tend to, carbs are bad. You got to cut the carbs. You got to, decrease calories. It's all about the protein. And that could be a really dangerous place. So if you're not fueling your body, it doesn't matter what workout you're doing. That workout could be amazing for you, but you have to feed your body properly in order for that to work well. So it's not an easy answer, but I do recommend trying, I had 3 different coaches and they were all fantastic. And I learned something from every one of them and would highly recommend all of them for different things. Um, but you have to pay attention to your body. You can't just, pun intended, you can't go in blindly
Yeah.
and
I
not
think,
ask questions and not hold your trainer accountable to teaching you. Because if you're just following along blindly and you're not asking questions and you're not learning, it's not going to do you any good.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've never had someone actually build a program for me with anything. Obviously, I'm not a bodybuilder, but like lifting is a daily thing for me. So it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I might have to actually get someone who knows what they're doing. I'm strong for my size, but I'm not like some jacked dude. But I don't know. I, it's not, I'd like having it for function, right? Like jujitsu is my big thing. So
Absolutely.
but obviously getting huge. Like I'm sure you were probably huge. That's probably feels freaking cool to like just know that you've dialed yourself in as to the extent of being just a machine to have been able to pull something like that off to
Yeah,
where
it was.
Go ahead.
It was great during that time.
Uh,
And when I had to retire, because that choice was made for me by my body, when I had to retire, that was the most devastating event that I had had. And but now, few years past that, at 52 years old, I could still bench more than my body weight. And there's not too many women my age that can even do that. So I don't look like a bodybuilder anymore. I mean, I still look athletic, but I'm still really strong. And I love that my body, is able to maintain that. Um, and I really kind of like being smaller now. I mean, I think it feels different. Like it's just different. I'm in a different part of my life. I'm doing different things. I miss pieces of it, but yeah, it felt really good to be jacked. But on the other side of that, living in Germany, um, they are they have no filter, let's put it that way. Like
okay.
people will openly point and stare at you and tap their friend on the shoulder with mouth wide open and go, like, look at her. So
Yeah, that
that
would
was a
be
little
jarring.
uncomfortable. So, and I actually, when I worked out in the gym, I stayed completely covered because I was just in my zone and I wasn't there to be, I wasn't there to show off or anything. I was there to get my work done. And so but it is nice to be able to like put your arm in a sleeve and bend it and not worry about like ripping it as you try to pull it off.
Or
I
like
had a
walks.
terrifying moment in a department store. I had to go, I don't know, buy a blouse for something or whatever. And I got the shirt on, but when I went to take it off, you cross your arms over to pull your shirt over your head. And when
Yeah.
I crossed my arms, my lats were so big that it like compressed I couldn't get the shirt off. I thought I was going to have to rip it and pay for the shirt that I and there's this moment of panic in the dressing room, like, I'm gonna get stuck here. So
And
it is
then
nice to be past that point.
yeah. And then have to walk through the door sideways because you're God so broad. Like kind of
Uh,
cool. Kind of cool.
no, it
But
kind of wasn't, but
was the other side of that, like especially women naturally carrying more body fat. I mean, if we're like you preparing for a show and getting to like that shredded point that you had talked about, I mean, that's not good for your health, correct? Like, I
not for
mean,
long periods of time.
yeah. Okay.
It's meant to be for a few days only.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess I mean that's the other side of that where I'm sure with the eating where it gets hard to like have the right maybe relationship with food and especially I mean man like not being able to do that anymore. I know you said it's nice now and you've adjusted to it, but that had to be a hurdle to get over after having worked for years and years to achieve that.
I still I've always loved food. I'm a huge foodie. That's my love languages. I love cooking for people. I love to make people feel like they have a family, that they're loved and cared for and appreciated. So that's a huge thing for me and always has been. And when I got into competing, I still had three young children, and into, in and through their high school years. So I wanted to make sure that my eating habits were healthy in all regards, healthy for me. I didn't want to be, punishing and depriving my body. At the same turn, I had three teenagers and my oldest was a girl. And I wanted to make sure that the way I spoke about my body, the way I spoke about food, how I ate, when I ate, that was healthy. And it was walking the walk as far as being an example for them and their eating habits. If I talked about carbs are bad, if I talked about I'm so fat, if I talked about I haven't lost any weight, I have to go work out, I can't have that because, I didn't do my cardio today, like that deprivation punishment type behavior. What was I teaching my children in the process? And also, bodybuilding can be more than just chicken, broccoli, and rice.
Mm.
Um, that's kind of a myth. I was eating some really great foods because I got creative. Again, that's what you can't do, but there's a lot of other things you can do. And I'm that really creative person. I will get outside of the box every single time. And I found really great recipes that nobody knew were bodybuilding recipes. I could take them to potlucks and nobody would know. And, if I ate out of a plastic container because my macros were very specific, I was unapologetic about it. I, this is what I'm doing. You don't have to understand it, and it's okay, you know. But the most important thing was I wanted my children to see that you could be an athlete and you could be very specific with your goals. You could be very specific with your food, but you could still love your body in the process and set a healthy example in the process.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, it's so foreign to me that like I have like I think being able any intentionality applied on top of something like that is inherently requires you to go to extremes to achieve it, I think is that's very, very respectable to still have that awareness and to be able to present that for your kids. But
How did
uh,
you eat as an athlete?
how did I eat as an athlete?
Uh, how would
Well,
you
like
describe your eating habits?
I eat I eat clean at home if I'm cooking. And then I would say I have a probably two or three. I'm trying to think. Like it depends on the week, I guess. I would say I typically probably order like Uber Eats or something for like 2 meals a week, and then everything else that I cook at home is clean. A lot of veggies, a lot of sweet potatoes, and then I mean a ton of just meat and eggs, really. But um, I got pretty chubby when for me, when I quit drinking, I started eating like shit then. And so I have gotten back on track. It's been a couple of years now. So, but that
Yeah.
was that was one where I definitely like knowingly eased up on the way that I eat. And that I think instead of, giving into a craving with booze, would do it with like cookie dough or something. And it was not pretty, but it worked out.
But it
So
was delicious.
oh yeah, it was worth it at the time until once I was sober and I was like, man, I'm 15 pounds heavier than I should be right now. I don't like this. This is not cool. But there's I don't know how to eloquently segue into this. So excuse me while I just kind of bull in a china shop right into this.
Yeah,
But I know your family has been affected by suicide and different mental health struggles as well. And obviously that's led, in my understanding, to what you're doing with the expo. So can we get into some of that to the extent that you're comfortable with it and start transitioning towards how we've wound up, 3 years into the expo and what you're doing there? Because I also want to be able to dive into just, I mean, what you're doing in terms of obviously the mission behind it, but the fact that so much of this is then also donated into services to help combat this to me is just it's huge. And I think it's important for people to hear because people can replicate that in other places as well. But I'd like to just get into all of it.
absolutely. No, and I'm incredibly transparent. Part of the part of the struggle around mental health and mental health issues and suicide is we need to normalize the conversation. We need to
Mhm.
be able to talk about it openly without hesitation. So I'm a huge advocate for that. Um, part of the journey started being a military family. I remember there was a Christmas, I didn't know the gentleman, but one of the docs in the ER at Landstuhl committed suicide. And I just remember you felt that wave come over the entire community. Like, how did this happen? Why didn't we know? How come we didn't notice? How come nobody saw what was about to happen? And it's just any loss in that manner was, I think, even more devastating, especially during the holidays. And then over the course of, my husband's 22-year career, we've lost more friends than I can possibly count. There's just so many people we've lost, unfortunately. And during our time at Launchstool, our family was no exception. We had 3 children, and our middle child uh, started having significant mental health issues around age 10, 11. It started with cutting, which
That
in and of
young?
its, yeah, yeah. And as parents, we're trying to do all the right things. We're going to counseling, we're making sure he's got a therapist, we're trying antidepressant medications. and it just wasn't getting any better. And then a few years later, the suicidal ideation started, and drinking, sneaking alcohol, and we would find empty vodka bottles, in the bedroom and things like that. Um, and resulted in a few inpatient care facilities, and being overseas with the language barrier, there was only, you know, so much we could do over there. So we ended up
Mm.
sending our son to an inpatient care facility in San Antonio. So we were separated geographically for 90 days, um,
Jeez.
and came back, and at the age of 16 or 17, attempted suicide. Um, thank God he grabbed the wrong bottle of pills.
Mm.
And was in the ER, but survived, and is just a thriving, amazing human today. Um, an incredible human. Couldn't have asked for anything more. Um, but it was, as a parent, to know that I was inches away from losing my child was one of the most devastating things in my life. I don't know that I've aside from losing my father at the age of 16, um, a mother almost losing her child was just almost more that I could bear the thought of. What if?
Yeah.
We were so fortunate, and ended up, um, you know, figuring things out, getting things straight, working through all of that. And like I said, he's within, I want to say, a year and a half past that, is just like, was a completely different human, and just living his best life now. Um, Fast forward a few years, our youngest son went through a life crisis, um, with a significant other, and got into a moment where he just didn't see a way out. He didn't see any hope. He didn't have any reason to be here anymore. He had flown to Florida. We didn't know that, and called us, and he was incredibly distraught, and was like, there's nothing left for me, and I don't need to be here anymore. I don't remember his exact words. And the phone went dead.
Mm.
And or I think before that, we were like, we'll be right there, because he lives just a few minutes down the road from us. And we're like, we will be, just stay on the phone with us. We're on our way. And he's like, I'm in Florida. And then the phone went dead. And we're like, oh God. And so we start calling everybody. We don't know what's happened. Um, but we were able to alert emergency services, and other friends of his that we thought might be in the area, and got him safe, and out of that crisis. He had hyperventilated and passed out before he could jump off the roof of the hotel.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah.
Is that where he called you from? Was the roof of the hotel?
I I actually, I never asked that question, but that was his plan. So yeah. So again, a second time, I'm like, I could have lost my kid, and I don't know that I would have survived that. I don't know. I don't know that I could have, I don't know that my heart could have survived that. And that became a mission as a parent. As teens, a lot of people brush teen depression and those thoughts off, or young people in particular, or anyone in particular. They're just trying to get attention. And I promise you, they're struggling, and they just need to be seen and heard. They need to know people care. They need people around them. And it's not the, and again, there's not a one size fits all. Not everybody reacts the same. Some people, don't say they don't want help, say they're fine. So um like, how can I help other parents and other loved ones not have to go through what we did, potentially see things, and again, for those that have lost loved ones, uh, sometimes there is nothing you can do. And that guilt of, could I have done something? I think about the guilt, what I've, survivors guilt, what I'd carried, that guilt, that maybe I could have stepped in and done something. And I know you shared your story, Zach, with, I think you said you were writing your note as your roommate came in, and had no idea.
Yeah, I was recording a suicide video to my family and he got home early from work. And so I paused the video and went out, left my room to go talk to him like nothing was wrong, and then went back in my room and shot myself.
Yeah.
And the day beforehand, my parents had visited me in that same room where a couple days before that is when I had decided that I was going to shoot myself in the head. So it's, I don't, and I think that's touching on something that you already said and this. So I talk about this stuff all the time. I think the survivor's guilt, I call it this misplaced guilt that people feel that is totally understandable when they're left behind after a suicide is a natural thing as humans that we will feel, right? Like we want to help someone,
Hmm.
and then you feel like, how did I miss that? I should have been able to help. What did I miss? I think it's important to recognize in that unless you deliberately, if you ignored someone's direct asking for help or admittance that they are in that place, that they are thinking about hurting themselves or someone else, or you've urged them towards suicide, like for people listening, there's nothing that you've done wrong. Uh, but I do think another thing that doesn't really get talked about, and you kind of touched on, and again, if you disagree with me on this, please tell me. Like this is why I'm
Hmm.
bringing it up, is so we can talk through it. But I think that in that discussion, I think a lot of what I guess contributes to this is I think we really get taught the warning signs that we get taught in suicide prevention programs and by professionals really miss a lot. They miss half of the population that contributes to suicides. I think there's, these overt warning signs of someone leaving the comments or sending you texts or giving all their things away and saying, oh, the world would be better off without me. Like these classic signs that we get told about. I think that points to that. I think there's two separate populations. I think there's a population that is fully believes that they want to die but don't actually, in turn, something in them doesn't want to die, and they end up doing things that is someone asking for help who doesn't know how to ask for help. They're in just as much crisis as someone who hides it until the last very minute like I did. But I think obviously those two scenarios present very differently. I hid the spot that I was in for like that entire downhill slide that I had for months until, to the extent that I would drive up to the mountains and pretend that I had gone snowboarding so that people thought I was still doing the stuff that I just had no enjoyment out of anymore. And so I think that's where we miss the ball of when there hasn't been any warning signs on the back end after when someone kills themselves and you're like, well, I was supposed to see all these warning signs. Where were they? I think that's an important conversation to have. Again, both are in crisis and need the amount of help, and that is a real risk, right? Like they are headed towards suicide. But I think that there's a delineation there that needs to be recognized when we talk about this stuff because of that specifically. And that has impacts, obviously, not just in stopping and preventing suicides, because there were warning signs with me. It's not, and I don't mean that in the sense like someone missed the ball. I just,
Yeah.
if you know someone really well, I think when someone is hiding it, I think there is a way to still notice small changes in baseline. Um, but it's just, I think in terms of prevention and trying to help people who have been left behind understand like you didn't do anything wrong. I think that's an
No.
important conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah. And like my son, it was a crisis moment.
Yeah.
Usually, if you can get someone past that moment of crisis and get them to just take some deep breaths and, uh, not literally, but figuratively, sometimes literally too, but just take a moment and take a step back from the situation. But, my son was in a spot where he was alone and in that moment of crisis. And thank God he called us, he did reach out. But no, it's hard. It's really hard. When I moved here to Colorado, it was just 6 months before the COVID pandemic. And I was super excited to be, and you kind of alluded to it at the beginning, it was the fifth healthiest state in the nation. So as an athlete, and where my husband and I are huge outdoor enthusiasts, love the mountains. We're really excited that Colorado has 300 days of sunshine,
Yeah.
not the dark, dreary gray of Germany, which we would go back in a heartbeat to. I'm not talking bad about Germany because I love Germany, but um, we quickly learned that, and not even just because of the pandemic, this was before and still remains after the pandemic. Colorado also ranks seventh in the nation for suicide rates. Now, how is that possible that we're this amazing healthy state, but we are also this amazing suicide capital of the
Yeah.
nation? And El Paso County, where Colorado Springs sits, it carries the burdens of those numbers. And people automatically jump to, oh, it's all the veterans. Yes, we have a very large veteran population. There are 5 military bases within a 20, 30-mile radius of Colorado Springs. However, nationwide, suicide is the number 3 killer of teens. In El Paso County, it's construction workers. That's one of the highest populations of suicide.
Really?
And I learned this going through a lot of suicide training conversation with Pikes Peak suicide prevention. Construction workers are some of the highest because of the injuries that occur on the job. And then they get prescribed painkillers, and then they get addicted to the painkillers. And then that turns into other addictions, which leads to the crumbling of a marriage, which leads to the loss of a job, which leads to homelessness, which leads to desperate.
Yeah.
And it's a slippery slope, and we don't think about it.
Yeah,
So,
I've never heard that before about the construction workers. But it makes sense. I mean, that is the telltale story of someone getting addicted to opioids and then ending up down that path. And like you mentioned desperation, like that suicide is a symptom of desperation, of pure desperation. That is what it
and it
is.
wasn't their fault, you know. They didn't ask to get hurt. They didn't ask to get prescribed medication so that they could deal with the pain. They didn't ask to get addicted. And it happened, and it's not their fault. So that's the other piece of this is sometimes bad things happen to good people. And like, can we be a little bit more aware of that what could happen, those types of situations, to maybe be there, to help prevent that, seeing that, knowing if we know these populations are at risk for this reason, maybe we pay a little bit more attention if we have a loved one in that population. And again,
Yeah.
no, it's not a simple answer. It's not a quick fix. I'm not it's just something that's always in my mind. What can I do? What can I look for? What can I learn? What can I be more aware of and be present with if someone in my life might be suffering?
Yeah. It's awareness and again, it's small, it's changes in the baseline. When someone is not presenting those signs that are, going to get them help, like it is recognizing, okay, man, you've been like, I know you had those pills, but like now I've been noticed the pills are gone, but now you're drinking a lot, and now you've been getting in fights with your wife and stuff like that. Like it's and having those direct conversations with people of, I think that's the other side of this, that it's not a comfortable conversation to have, but you have to be direct with someone. It's not a, hey, how are you? Are you doing all right? You have to be like, Sandy, I've noticed these things in you, and X, Y, and Z. The drinking, you're very agitated and impulsive. You're starting to pull away from people. I am worried about you. Are you thinking of hurting or killing yourself or someone else?
Yeah.
And because that you've walked all the way up to them and opened the door for them to say something and ask for help. And if they don't say something still, like is the other side of that thing with, people feeling guilty, being left behind after something like that is like
Yeah.
it sounds very uncharitable to say, but like at the end of the day, it is also that person is the one who made that decision. And we have to recognize that,
Yeah.
like, I shot myself in the face. That was my choice. That was my choice to let myself get to that point. It's the same way with anyone else that's gone there. And so I know, I don't think in the moment that probably helps, but hopefully over time, realizing those things and the other things that we've talked about, like that helps ease that burden for people on the back end to some extent. And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe dull the sharpness of it a little bit, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But I
it's
think,
tough.
just, and this happened, I want to say, within a year and a half of me living here, one of my clients, and I tell my clients the same thing. Again, I know COVID was hard on people, the isolation, the loneliness, especially for people that really need, other people, the community in their life. So I let all my clients know, if you ever need anything, call me night or day. My phone's on do
Mhm.
not disturb, but call twice, it'll ring through. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning on a weeknight, and one of my clients actually called me and she's like, Sandy, I have a bottle. And if I drink this bottle, it's liquid. If I drink it all, it will kill me. And I need help. I don't want to do this, but I don't know what else to do. And I need help. And again, I'm new to the community. I didn't understand, the one, I still feel like I was still integrating back into US culture, and, COVID shut everything down. So I really haven't had a chance to explore, my community. Um,
Yeah.
so luckily she was 5 minutes away. I kept her on the phone while I drove over there, and I'm trying to find mental health resources on the fly. I'm like,
Mm.
I don't know where to go. I don't know what number to call, because she didn't want me to call 911. She's like, I promise, you've got the bottle now. I promise I'm not gonna, I don't have, and, I just need help. I need somebody to talk to. I need somewhere to go.
Yeah.
But so she didn't want lights and sirens, which I understand. So I'm trying to find mental health resources, and I am Googling, literally Googling mental health resources, and I was so lost, and I felt like I just wasn't, I could have done better. I know that sounds silly, but I wanted to, like, be there for her. And I was in her home and I was there with her, but I was fumbling, and I felt like she's just going to get tired of this and go, forget it, in the back of my mind, and that's what kind of led me to, as soon as that crisis was over, like, really look at what resources do we have? Who can I call? Who can I have on speed dial? What are the places closest to my community should somebody else be in need and I can drive them there immediately? Um, and I discovered we have so many resources here in the Springs. And then the 988 crisis hotline, is now
Mhm.
available, um, for everyone, not just in Colorado. And I thought, there are so many resources, but people don't know about them. And if they don't know about them, then they can't be of help. And so the more that we talk about it, the more we share resources, the more we put them in front of people, the better, because you may not need it right now. You may not have anyone in your life in crisis. You may not be in crisis right at this moment. But when you do, or when you are, or when you have a family member that needs it, you'll be prepared and ready. And you'll be like, I know what to do. I know who to call. I know where to go. And so that was, and of course, as anybody in fitness and the health and wellness realm understand, our mental health and our physical health are so tied together. You
Yeah, I think
really,
that's people
you
miss
need to
that.
move to
Yeah.
heal, and you also need to have a healthy mind to have a healthy body. So it just was a natural intersection of, let me, I want to do a health and wellness expo or health and fitness expo because I love everything about fitness. It saved my life. And it gave me so much more of my life. And if I can make this something of worth, not just a fun event, but something of worth and value and impact in my community where I live, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, let's make it a charitable event. And so we donate 100% of our ticket proceeds to Pikes Peak suicide prevention. And then NAMI is also, National Alliance of Mental Illness is also
Mhm.
part of our community partners. And a lot of other businesses in our community, even if they're not health and wellness related, are huge mental health advocates and business leaders in our community that support this event.
Wow. Yeah, and I guess that's, I mean, pretty straightforward for other people to take that approach and run with it. I mean, because it's at the end of the day, like it is costs are being covered, correct? And but like you're not having to eat this out of pocket, and you're still being able to donate all of the ticket proceeds to Pikes Peak.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
except for the first year. This was such a
that's
passionate
fair.
project for me
Yeah.
that, and my husband is so, I adore my husband. He is the best man in the world. I'm a little biased, but he really is the best man in the world. We paid for the first event personally. So we were the
Jeez.
sole investors of the first event because it had to get started. I didn't,
Yeah.
I felt like it just couldn't wait. I couldn't wait till I had the money because it may have been too late. How many lives did we save out of the first event? I have no idea. But if I saved one, cool. It was worth it. It was
Yeah.
worth it. So then we took a year off in 2024. The 2023 was our first event. We took a year off and we were in year three. And we've like, how many other ways can we save lives? So we've partnered with Vitalent Blood Services, and anybody that donates blood or a blood product, plasma or platelets, gets a free ticket to the expo. We give out Purple Mountain Recovery donates Narcan kits for us to distribute in the community so we can save lives through opioid overdose. And we also provide Purple Mountain Recovery also provides training on how to recognize signs and symptoms of opioid overdose and how to administer the Narcan kit effectively. So there's so many life-saving opportunities. We do QPR training as an expo. We host QPR training. We've got one coming up on June 26th. For those that aren't aware of what QPR is, I highly recommend it for everyone and everyone in your family to take it. It's question, persuade, and refer. It's how to start the conversation and ask if somebody is thinking about taking their life. Um, how to ask the questions on what's going on, how can I help, and then refer them to the proper resources. You're not a counselor. You don't need to go that in depth. You just need to find out where they're at, what they need, how they got there, and be a human, connect with them, and just help them find the resources that they may need.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard. I was gonna ask you. I was like, "What the hell is QPR?" But
Yeah, yeah.
that's okay. Yes, I mean that's just part of suicide prevention training, like standard. Huh.
Yeah, and if you're in the Colorado Springs community, it is offered free by many different organizations here. Peakview Behavioral Health, one of our sponsors for the expo, and Pikes Peak Suicide Prevention, one of our partners, both offer it for free. All you have to do is ask for a class, and you can do this at work. You can do this for your family at home. It's about an hour training, and it could save a life.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, he again, that just being direct with someone like that, that's you've opened the door for them to walk through. And I think also, I mean, these conversations do the same thing. And I guess not exactly, but I think they softly confront is too strong of a word. Maybe it makes people confront where they're at when they hear this stuff being talked about openly. Which also has the potential to save lives. And I've had some pretty powerful experiences with people, whether it's, I don't know why Uber drivers are very, very open to like ask how I lost my sight, like probably more so than anyone else. It's always Uber drivers, but I've had
Really?
Uber drivers on two occasions now where, crying in the car telling me that they're struggling and, where can they get help and stuff like that. Like it's all the way up to after speeches or presentations or other things, like people coming up and ask like
Mhm.
same conversations. It opens that door, I think, for people to be vulnerable. Yeah, I don't know what it is about Uber drivers, but it's something about it. But um,
But how
what's
powerful is that? Like a simple question could lead to a life-changing event in someone's life.
yeah,
It,
yeah,
it, and it's that simple. And if we can just learn to reconnect as humans with each other and care about one another, just ask a simple question. Ask, or compliment somebody on something, and it just starting any type of conversation, you never know where that could lead. And, somebody asking a question about you could lead into just an incredible, incredible life-changing conversation.
Just give a crap about other people. That goes a
Yeah,
long way, I think. Like
pretty simple.
it's very simple. That conversations are easier, or easier said than done. Being direct with someone in different circumstances that we're talking about, but that's a pretty safe, I guess, framework to go through life with. And like, don't be a piece of crap. Care about other people and show them that you care. But I mean, it sounds like you guys have really the scope of all this in just in 3 years is very, very impressive. Is there more? I mean, do you have your sights set on more expansions of this as well moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. Did I mention I like to get out of the box?
Do you want
So
to talk about it? Yeah.
I would love to. Just shut me up if I go too long.
Okay.
Um, no, one of the things is with mental health being our platform and our foundation is a lot of trade shows and expos feel very superficial, very sales pitchy, and very cold. But you're just walking by. Most people come in to trick or treat for the free swag and the squish balls and the pens on the tables and the bag
Hmm.
clips, and then they head out the door. We want to make sure that our community is they don't feel like a walking dollar sign target for businesses, that they actually feel connected, they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued and appreciated. And us as an expo want our businesses to also feel valued and appreciated, and not like we just sold them a table and good luck. So since the organ at the um, Small Business Development Center, and then a branding company. So we're actually mentoring our businesses. A lot of them are new. A lot of them are brand new entrepreneurs, and this will be their first expo they've ever done. And we want to make sure that they walk in prepared, equipped, confident. They know they've got all their business stuff in line. They've got their branding. They've got some AI tools to help them with their marketing. And then we're going to show them how to set up a booth that's not icky and doesn't feel like gross when you like sales pitchy, that you
Yeah.
can just have a conversation. You can do something fun at your booth and get people involved in talking and conversations and things like that, so that they actually leave with a valuable ROI. They leave with some great, maybe some friends. That's what we're hoping for. But our businesses, we introduce them prior to the expo so that collaborative opportunities can get started. We're always stronger together. We're not created to do life alone or business alone. And so as businesses, how much more can we help our community if we combine forces and work together to serve our community? So we provide opportunities for our businesses with a VIP networking event a week prior to the expo. And then for our attendees, um, we have a fitness fashion showcase starting this year. And that's going to be not just a fashion show, not just apparel, but demonstrations of different ways to get your body moving. And we're going to also, I'm super excited about this, feature our adaptive athletes. So we're going to have some wheelchair athletes and some other adaptive athletes showcasing their sport. We're Paralympic City, USA.
Yeah.
So it just boggles my mind that we just don't have more inclusivity in events within our city. Um, and that's another reason we started the Colorado Strong competition. It's not a CrossFit, it's not a bodybuilding competition, it's nothing like anybody's ever done. And we created some divisions that are not, no one has made space for. Adaptive athletes have to compete in their own competitions. So if it's a wheelchair only competition. Very
Yeah.
seldom will you see wheelchair athletes with able-bodied athletes in the same room doing the same things. And we specifically curated this competition so that our wheelchair athletes and able-bodied athletes could be doing the exact same thing as close as possible,
Mm.
and be celebrated together. Also, another population that no one has made space for is our transgender and non-binary population. Most fitness competitions have a male and female category, but there's been a lot of controversy with transgender persons competing in cisgender non-binary person that identifies as they, them. Male, female is not who you identify as. And so we wanted to make sure there was space for everyone in our community to be celebrated for who they are, the human that they are, the athlete that they are, and just have fun and support each other in this really cool event. So we're going to have everyone on the floor at the same time, and it's going to be awesome.
Very, very different. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. I would say no, it's cool. I mean, obviously adaptive sports are huge for me, and a lot of that's one thing. Like I wish jujitsu was a Paralympic sport. It's not. So when I compete against people who don't have anything wrong with them, which is cool because if I lose, it's like, well, you beat up a blind guy. And if I win, I'm like, you got beat up by a blind guy. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny, the women wrestlers that I work with said the same thing. A lot of the women that I've worked with started off because girls wrestling was not sanctioned and it was not a recognized sport, and they had to wrestle against boys. And the same thing, you either got your butt kicked by a girl or you lost to a girl, or you beat up a girl.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I get how it, because like with these competitions, I mean, biologically, there are differences between men and women. So regardless of how someone identifies, like I don't think, just again, personal belief, but I've been an athlete my entire life. I don't think a biological male should be competing against women unless, if everyone's cool with that, which I guess is the spirit of these. So everyone's going in knowing that that is the case. Like what all sort of sports are you guys doing? Do you know yet? Or how
Oh
are you
yeah. So,
addressing
and with
that?
the USOPC, coming out with, they've made a ruling. We've identified the problem and we get it. Now we just have to figure out the solution. Again, you've been told you can't. So what can
Hmm.
we do? And I'm all about
Yeah.
the can. Okay, we can't go this direction. So we need to find. So all of our competitions are body weight based. So it's a percentage of your body weight. We do have male, female categories for most of our divisions. The open pride division is open pride, and we do have a transgender male, transgender female, and non-binary. And non-binary, we just kind of met in the middle with
Okay.
the requirements. Again, we might mess this up completely, but we're doing this with love. We're doing this with thoughtful intention. We've had a lot of conversations. We've asked a lot of questions. We've talked with people in the queer community and gotten lots of feedback. I've talked with some amazing individuals. One gentleman was really trying to help get the gay games here in Denver. And
I
just
didn't know that was a
pointed.
thing. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a huge
That's
thing. It's an
funny.
international thing. It's an international thing, but because of our political climate, they decided to host it in a different country this year. But i- we may not get it right, but we at least made an effort and we'll learn and we'll be better next time.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit of a failure this year, but the intent was there, the love was there, the care and concern for that community is there, and we'll do the best we can with it.
Yeah, and I was thinking that as you explained how you were separating the brackets still, or how you were navigating that too, is like that is obviously that is it. Those are populations that are affected by mental health, probably disproportionately more so than Gen Pop. So, hell yeah, the spirit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well, the
get
cool
it.
thing is when we announce the division winners, it's going to be our adult winners are athlete name, athlete name.
Mhm.
Our senior division winners are athlete name, athlete name. So there's not going to be any delineation of male, female. You identify as who you are. You are the human that you are. You're the athlete that you are, and you won this competition. So we're going to celebrate you as an athlete.
Hmm.
So
Cool.
your gender, your identity in that regard doesn't make any difference. You just won a really cool competition and we're going to celebrate you. So,
Yeah, and I think that's also the you're doing it where everyone knows that like
mhm.
this is what you're coming here for. It is not a high school boy taking over, potentially stealing a high school girl's college chances of, stealing that scholarship spot. This is very different. So
Yep. This
that's
is to
cool.
build community.
Yeah.
This is what this competition's about, is to build community, support one another. No matter your starting point, this may be the first competition you've ever done. You may be looking for a new challenge because you've competed in everything else before. And it
Hmm.
doesn't matter who you are, what
Yeah,
level you're at, what size shape you are, how old you are, doesn't matter. We just want to build community and have a really good time doing it.
it's neat. I'm excited to see what it's all about. Because I mean, I've this isn't like this. You and I just connected by happenstance, and like but our one conversation on the phone, I was like, okay, I need to talk to this lady. Like it just, it's very everything that you've said of you guys doing this very differently. I mean, it's been very clear just from interacting with you before I even had all the details of everything. Like it's your genuineness and like your intent and your passion behind what you're doing and the why is so very clear and it stands out that you're doing it for all the right reasons and I respect the hell out of that. So
Thanks. You have just an amazing story. And I have to tell you, I don't think I've told you this yet, actually. When I I had to think I sent you a form so you could speak at the expo and
Mhm.
you're like, I'm not sure if I can read it. It depends on your website and the tools that your form has built in
Mhm.
to be ADA, compliant. And I was like, oh my gosh. It never occurred to me. And it's just like working with our wheelchair athletes. There's so many things that never occurred to me. And what started it was last year when we set up the expo. We got a little over ambitious and crammed way too many tables into rooms. And we had somebody with a stroller come back and give us feedback and said, we loved your event. It was great, but we did several friends with adult children in wheelchairs. And I
Mhm.
thought, "Oh my god, what if one of my friends had been at the expo and couldn't get in?" The building's accessible, but our event was not. And as we started planning the wheelchair, category, the wheelchair division for our competition, I started looking at gyms, and same thing. So many gyms, so many fitness centers had their equipment so close together, there would be no way for a person in a wheelchair to maneuver around that equipment. Gosh, we have to do better. The building's accessible, the gym is not. And then my website, and you said you couldn't read a form. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to do that. And I will tell you, and again, it's not perfect. I'm still working on it, and I would love your feedback and give it to me straight, man. But I have used Claude and gone in, and most of my main pages on my website are now 508 compliant.
Yeah, which is just the fact that you heard that and like actually did something about it is so big. I'll the the whole because I'm a software developer now. I mean,
I didn't know
my college stopped making my course content accessible for me when I was pursuing a psychology degree. And so I researched what caused that, found out it was code and dropped out of college to teach myself how to code so I could create accessible technology. And so I've had a university not do their job with that. I just tried consulting with one of a massive nonprofit on this, not fixing it. Like this is most companies, most institutions don't even when it are smacked in the face with this in a tactful way of, hey, this is what you're preventing people from being able to access because the digital accessibility is the equivalent of a wheelchair ramp. It's the exact same
Absolutely.
thing. But most like they shrug it off. So the fact that you did that is so cool, and I appreciate it like more than you would realize. That is so cool.
I'm embarrassed that I didn't think of it sooner, that it wasn't something that like we're like I don't know. I feel like I'm behind the power curve. So I'm really
No, you're
glad to
not.
have met
People
you.
don't
And
know
I'm
that.
really glad that you brought that to my attention. And like I said, same thing with my website. It may not be exactly compliant yet, but at least I'm trying.
Oh, no,
It
I
might
didn't
be a
even.
total disaster, but I tried.
Yeah, and I didn't bring it up to you for that. I just let you know, like, hey, I'm probably not gonna be able to fill out this form. We're gonna have to figure out something else out. So like that is so cool. Um, yeah, that's
No, it's
badass.
it's just about learning and leveling up. And um if we can just let people know, hey, it's this simple to do this. I did it myself. I'm not a website designer. I use Claude and I use some AI And I did the best I could. But if it's at least a step in the right direction and we can help other people with that to level up and start paying attention to all of the things that we talked about. Um, I mean, it just starts with one little baby step.
Yeah. It's progress, step in the right direction, it builds momentum and that carries into other things and affects other people. So,
Yeah.
um, where can everyone find all of these crazy things that you're doing and get in contact?
They can go to the expo website. It is cosfitnessexpo.com. All the information and ticket links and everything are there, or they can go to Eventbrite and search for Colorado Springs Expo, Colorado Springs Health and Fitness Expo, and it'll pop up.
And that is mid/late August. It's the 21st to the
22nd,
23rd.
22nd and 23rd at the Great Wolf Lodge, Northern Colorado Springs.
All right.
And we do offer discounts for first responders, military, seniors over 65, and teens from 10 to 17, and any child under the age of 10 is free. And all of our ticket proceeds, 100% of them go to Pikes Peak suicide prevention.
Sweet. It's freaking awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much
Thanks.
for all of it and for coming on to share it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for letting me blab.
Yeah. And thanks everyone at home for listening to another episode of Going In Blind. We'll see if I can actually get this video stopped when I try to, but we've had so many issues with this episode. But I think the big takeaway here, there's a lot to digest there, but we did mention a phone number in the middle of that. It's 988 is the suicide or crisis line. I have called that phone number before. No one came and busted my door down and whisked me away to a hospital or, arrested me for being in a bad spot. They got me connected with the help that I needed. They got me connected to the VA and once they knew that I was in a safe spot and I wasn't going to do something crazy. So if you're that person, pick up the phone. It will probably be the hardest thing that you've ever done, but you will be happy that you did it and be thankful for the fact that you're still here and be a better person coming out on the other side of that. So I will get off of my soapbox and
Well,
I
if I
will
can just
see
add
you.
a little
Oh,
bit,
go for
sorry,
it.
add to that is a family member or just a loved one, or if you have, people in your life that you're a little concerned about, it is okay to call that number and tell them this is not a crisis. I just want to walk through this process. Because it's not like 911 where they're going to dispatch vehicles and staff, our police and fire. It's just it's a human on the other line, and you can go through the process. So there is a number. You have a selection for veterans. You have a selection for just normal population, but you can go through that process and hear what those prompts are like, so that if you're dialing that number for someone in crisis, you can tell them this is what's going to happen, and the person on the other side would be happy to walk you through that process. That I found that very helpful, knowing that I could do that, and it was really simple, and they actually really appreciate it as well.
Well, there you go. People, you heard it. Go do it. And I'll see you next week. Bye.